All right, so thanks everybody for coming to our presentation, where we'll share the story of how we redesigned Theorem's core application, and with that we'll talk about our learning process and what we found useful in the redesign story. So we'll talk about a little about the collaboration process between the developers, customers, and subject matter experts, and we'll also give some code tips on how to structure the code base to get a good result. So firstly, let us introduce ourselves. So Dan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Tomaszewski. I work for Theorem Technologies. I'm basically the application support manager and a project manager for our internal IT projects. I'm also a subject matter expert on the workflows and processes and business side that our customers use. We have a post-trade processing solution where we import data from big brokers, aggregate the data, and then offer post-trade processing solutions for customers. This is reconciliations, trade allocations, and also some reporting and also a reporting platform.
Yeah, so my name is Jonatan C, and I'm a senior software engineer. I've held positions that were connected both to data and machine learning, but right now I'm working as an engineer responsible for algorithms creation and optimization for financial assets. And I work at Scalo, which is a software partner company, and so we offer help for other companies to help them achieve their technology goals. And so that's how we cooperate with Theorem, and Dan will now introduce you to the redesign process of the new application. Oh, sorry, actually I will go for the contents firstly. So as I mentioned, we'll introduce you to the redesign project, then we will talk about the UI UX design and areas connected to that. We'll talk about how to collaborate with the development team to achieve a good development process. And then we'll show you the examples of a feature redesign and share the lessons that we learned along the way.
Yeah, and our legacy platform was very dated. I mean, it's been running, it's been working, it's been great for customers, but it was a dated design. It used old web forms, hosted in a private cloud. And with all that infrastructure, there was a big support footprint. So we wanted to reimagine our application, and with the help of Scalo, we are implementing a new modern design, hosting it in the public cloud, also redesigning the whole user interface, user experience. Clients are able to configure their specific workflows for what they need. If they need to import custom files on their side, their broker data, just everything could be customized and easy to use from the user experience. We handle a lot of different customers and a lot of different, from hedge funds to trading advisors to investors. So everyone has a specific need for the application that we host for them. So this new user experience allows a personalization to make the software, work for them.
Yes. So whenever there's a new design for an application that already has an old version, we tend to look back at the old version and translate it to the new version with some additional features. But it's always a redesign includes a lot of new ideas during the whole process of the creation of the new application. So fortunately, we knew that this requires a very solid code base and to never cut corners at the beginning of the project, and that's something that we didn't have a problem with, and that we endorse. That developers actually spend a good amount of time getting the very core of the system running and test it thoroughly before you move to the UI and the UX flows. And it's also, with that comes the modularization of the functionality, so that it's possible to later on change some ideas in the mid-project. So for example, in our case, we've had 2 databases that were, one was the SQL database, SQL Server database, and we've had the Postgres database. And the initial idea was that those 2 separate databases will be used for different purposes, and that we will have to manage those 2 different systems. But midway the project, once the requirements changed, it was actually, there was a decision to move both databases to Postgres. And what helped us pivot from those 2 different systems to just one was that we've used a high-level abstraction for the database systems. That saved us a lot of time without having to redesign the whole database, like stored procedures that would be written in Transact SQL specifically for the SQL Server. And it just allowed us to kind of seamlessly make the change. So that's also something that we endorse to, at the start of the project, make the design of the system as flexible as possible, and make the code easy to change later on, and sacrifice a little bit of optimization in the very early stages of the project, so that you are not later on stuck with something that you cannot change due to the being too specific to a certain technology stack. So then we'll now talk you through the UI and the UX design problems.
Right. So when we were initially creating the new user experience, we needed to fully understand the business now and in the future. And with that, we have, in our company, we have between all of us that work there, we have like over 60 years of experience in this industry. This is the futures and options post-trade processing. So we know our customers, we know what they need. We've done these jobs in the past, so we know how the trades should flow through. We know how to design the screens, design buttons, design functionality. We initially mocked up a traditional requirements document. We added a lot of wireframe diagrams, just very rough mock-ups, and included also like process flow, data flow diagrams, just so the development team can get started and do their development process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at the beginning of the project, we used just normal Scrum methodology for the project management, and that was working for us. However, we've noticed that with the demos of the software every 2 weeks, we were slow on actually receiving feedback from the customer, which the Theorem could provide us. And because of the complexity of the systems, the developers that didn't have much exposure to developing financial application before, they couldn't really understand all the nitty-gritty details of how the app should feel like and what the UX flow should be. So we switched to extreme programming paradigm, which is also an agile project methodology, management methodology, but it's a little bit faster in a way that we prioritize quick, fast-paced feedback loops. And we try to demo every 2 to 3 days instead of every 2 to 3 weeks. And so to give you an overview of how the extreme programming is different than the normal Scrum is that we make 3 distinct roles. It's the customer, the developers, and the tracker. And so the customer is a stakeholder that has all the business knowledge and all the subject matter expertise in how the product should feel like and what it should do. Then we have the team of the developers that are responsible for obviously the coding. And then there is a tracker, and it's a single person that is from the development team. And that person acts as a sort of a technical product owner, but it has to be a person that is very proficient in coding and also understands the business logic behind the whole process. So that person will advocate on behalf of the customer and the developer between each other, and make sure that one understands the other. And so for this type of cooperation, it's very important that there is honesty between the customer and the development team. And in collaborations like this one, when it's, for example, two different companies, it's often that the development team wants to only demo the products that are good, and don't want to bother the customer or the stakeholders with questions and take their time. So it's important that the teams early on agree that there will be questions, and that it's okay to reach out to the stakeholders and involve them in the whole life cycle of the creation of the software, and that the presentable demos will not be perfect. And that's why we prioritize quick and dirty development and code before design. And what that means is that we'll show the client the demo of the product with working UX flows, but we understand that the product that we are demoing might include bugs. It might not have the perfect visual. All the visuals are not yet there. But what we want to get an approval on is that the way the app feels is correct. So we want to make sure that the UX part is done correctly first before we test all the code, before we make all the pretty buttons and so on. And we've noticed that once we switched to that project management paradigm, we were actually able to roll out the functionalities much faster, and there was much less disagreements between the customer and the development team. And it led to a better cooperation overall. So for example, the extreme programming to achieve the demos every 2 or 3 days, it's important that it often involves pair programming, and that makes sure that the code that the developers focus only on the very small pieces of code for a day or 2, and they get them ready and demo them to the customer instead of multiple developers working on their features and being stuck for example, for 3 or 4 days before they reach out for help or demo their part of the code.
Right, and this new this extreme programming was very helpful as we slowly got closer and closer to having like a usable product. We constantly were going back and forth with providing the feedback. Yes, this is the workflow that our customers, that we want our customers to have. This is the workflow that will work for our internal users. Just that constant back and forth feedback with the fast-paced development really was great, because we were able as the customer to see the progress. It seemed like the progress was much faster. Every couple days we saw this new feature. Every couple days we saw another new feature, or we saw something that needed to be changed. So everything was this collaborative work with Jonathan was wonderful.
Yeah, so the whole extreme programming paradigm wouldn't be possible if there wasn't a daily close collaboration between the subject matter experts, the development team, and the UX. And so the reason for this is that the product is so complicated that designers often don't understand that. And so I've spent a lot of time not on the meetings, but on just with the designers, like the UI designers and the UX designers, just working alongside them and explaining to them, all right, the part of the app that you are making right now should feel like this. The numbers that will come out of this model will actually be later on translated to that part of the system, and that helped them greatly understand how the product should feel like. And it's also then important that that at certain stages you even get the customers, the subject matter experts, and the stakeholders to work with the designers, for example, once every week that they meet and they realign on what the vision is for the system. So,
yeah, I'll just explain a little bit of these. This is our old legacy application, which was very web form based. You see multiple tabs to be able to do certain functions, whether you're performing an allocation or setting up your instructions or doing your data mapping. Everything was multiple clicks, multiple tabs to get the workflow the way you need it to go. Yep. Now the new design, you could see we don't have the tabs going across. It's a very modern design. Users are able to see everything on one screen. Jonathan, I don't know if you could talk about the development behind this page.
Yeah, so I won't cover like the UI and so on, but the main differences were that we are able to actually remove a lot of the buttons and a lot of the inputs for the clients, for the end users, by working closely with the Theorem. And so they have a wealth of experience on how their users are using the application and some of the behavioral patterns behind the on how the users actually click on the website and what results they want to achieve. So we were able to actually hide some of the inputs from the users and process that on the back end, so that the users can more focus on what they actually input and make the inputs minimized, so that they don't have to wonder, okay, do I have to also input this? Is that important? Is that not important? They just go into the application, they see a limited amount of things they can input, they input them, and they see the results. And then we actually let the end users, we let them browse the results for all different cases that they would, that previously they would have to input a specific input for. So we've made that possible by analyzing the way that the users have used the app previously. And that also allowed us to create some predefined presets for the users, so that the users without an expert knowledge that could also use the app. Because previously it was mandatory for the users to kind of know what they are doing, and that's something that we wanted to mitigate in the new design to make it more accessible for a bigger audience.
Yeah, no, here's another example of a legacy web form. The controls are very static. It's unintuitive. We needed an end user wouldn't know what to do with the screen, so we would have a lot of internal customer service reps setting these up for the customer. And obviously, if an end user can't use your software, it's not a very good design. So we reimagined this, and on the next screen you can see we've got a more modern design, dragging and dropping. It's quick and responsive, instant feedback to the user, and they can set up their workflows and get on with their day.
Yeah. So to add to that, again, going from the development perspective, getting those pages the way they are actually involve a lot of back and forth between us, the development team, and the customer, because we didn't really have the expertise looking at the old designs, which parts of the old system we can remove. We didn't know that. That's something that only Theorem knew, and we've had to get our designers, work with them closely, not the development team, but actually with the subject matter experts, to know how to redesign that. And I think that that's kind of not so popular approach, that we actually send the designers to the customers and make the designers work directly with customers, because it's often that the development team should figure stuff by themselves, and only present the final results to the customer. But we found this way of working much better and delivering much better results. So in this screen, for example, also by having the experience of how users created their ETL processes for data, we were able to create an automated process that just by looking at the file, it knew what columns and what transformations should be applied. And you might also wonder, for example, that was a case for us that when we as a development team firstly started working on that, we're thinking, why don't we get the data through the APIs, right? So trying to implement as much novelty in the product as possible. We didn't even think about still handling just files like CSV files from banks. We thought that we might get them to just use the APIs to send them data. But it actually comes through the collaboration, again, with someone who knows the industry and knows their customers, that we also have to handle those older types of transferring data. And that's just something that comes from the experience. And we couldn't force as a development team, we couldn't force onto the customer our way of for example, creating the ETL processes, because they knew that they couldn't get their clients to change their ways of handling the data, and that we actually had to adapt our system UX-wise for them to be comfortable and seamless. So I will give a summary, but we'll also share some additional learnings. So in our case, keeping the code clean actually enabled us to pivot mid-project multiple times, because it happened that we as a development team misunderstood the project requirements, and by demoing often we are able to fix them, and through having a solid code foundation, we were able to redesign certain parts of the app that we were misaligned on without a complete redesign of the code base, because some foundations were just there for whatever use case we had to give them. And then the introduction of the extreme programming project management reduced time to find those misunderstandings, and it helped us increase the pace of prototyping and also delivering functionalities and demos. And I think that if I was to take one learning from this session, is to give extreme programming a try. And it sometimes looks like the Scrum is the perfect choice for those projects. But in any case, that the development team doesn't have deep expertise on the product that they are developing, I think it's very worth trying out and actually getting the team to collaborate with the stakeholders directly, instead of trying to figure out the product based just on the project requirements from documents. And so lastly, the involvement of subject matter experts in the design process helps creating those intuitive workflows. And that's something that is not really possible if the developers themselves don't have the wealth of experience on how the end users use the product, about the behaviors and the patterns in which the users use the app. So I think we'll answer any questions, because I guess it's better if we just answer your questions right now, if you got any about this type of the project management and creating the UX for the application. Mm-hmm.
How did you guys measure the success of the redesign versus the old?
Right now, we are slowly introducing. It's very new. So we're slowly introducing it to other parties, other close partnerships. So it hasn't been measured yet, but but I would imagine the feedback we get from these specific pilot users will judge the success of the redesign. So this is still very, very new.
Yes, you also have to take into account that we are doing like a business-to-business application. So we don't really have to A/B test the new design versus the old design, and do the surveys on what are the conversion rates for the new redesign versus the old redesign. What is the time of the sessions? How long can we keep the user engaged on the website? We can ask for a more direct feedback from a certain business, a certain client of Theorems on how they feel the new app feels like versus the old app. Yeah, any more questions? If not, Theorem will make the solution public in the coming weeks. So if you would like to see the workflows, you can follow them to get your hands on their solution. And if any question arises later, then we'll be happy to answer them at our booth at the conference. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.